The first time the mirror didn't reflect me, I thought it was a trick of the light. I'd just moved into a new apartment, an old place downtown with warped floors, a ticking radiator, and a single wall-length mirror bolted into the hallway near the bedroom. It had probably been there for decades. Gold frame, glass slightly foggy, like it remembered things you hadn't done yet. I passed it carrying a box of books. No big deal. But out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something strange. There was a delay. I turned my head, and so did the reflection. A second later, I froze, waited, moved my hands slowly. My reflection mimicked me, but it was just off enough to make my stomach twist. Then it snapped back into sync, as if it caught up and pretended nothing happened. I chalked it up to exhaustion. The move had been a nightmare. I hadn't slept in almost 48 hours. But deep down, I knew what I saw. The next few days were uneventful. Mostly. Every now and then, I caught a glimpse of something wrong in that mirror. Nothing dramatic, just moments. My reflection blinking when I didn't. My mouth moving a split second too soon. Once, I swore the hallway in the reflection had one less picture frame than the real one. I took a video to prove I wasn't imagining things. Played it back. Everything looked normal. But when I paused the footage, one frame showed me smiling in the mirror. A huge, toothy smile. I wasn't smiling when I filmed it. I deleted the video. One night I got up around 3 a.m. for water. The apartment was dead silent. The kind of silence that presses in, like the walls are listening. As I walked past the mirror, I stopped. There was someone else in the reflection, behind me, standing in the bedroom doorway. Tall, thin, head tilted like a curious dog, not moving. I turned around fast, heart in my throat. Nothing. The hallway was empty, lights off, bedroom door open just like in the reflection. I looked back at the mirror. The figure was gone. But my reflection hadn't turned back with me. It was still facing the mirror, still looking at the doorway, still afraid. I started avoiding the hallway at night, but the mirror didn't care. It started showing up in other places. The microwave door, the car's rearview mirror, even the window of the washing machine at the laundromat. Everywhere there was glass, there was something wrong. A flicker, a shadow behind me, an expression I hadn't made yet. I once looked into a puddle outside and saw myself walk away before I actually moved. It got worse. I woke up one morning to find a note on my fridge, slipped under a magnet. The handwriting looked like mine, but more rushed, crooked. It said, "Don't look in the mirror tonight, no matter what you hear." There was no signature, no explanation. I didn't write it. I live alone. That night I covered the mirror with a blanket, taped it down. At 3:08 a.m. I woke up to whispering. Not words, just syllables. Rhythmic, repetitive. It was coming from the hallway. I lay there frozen, blanket over my head like I was 5 years old again. The whispering stopped. Then I heard tape peeling. Slowly, deliberately. Then came the voice, not whispering anymore, low, echoing. "You forgot what you asked for." The sound of something tapping on glass. You wanted to see what was watching. Then silence. I stayed in bed until sunrise. When I finally stepped into the hallway, the blanket was gone. The mirror was uncovered. There were handprints on the glass. Not mine. Too long, too thin. Fingers pressed hard enough to leave streaks down the surface. I moved out 2 days later. But that's not the end. That was 6 months ago. I've been living in a new apartment since. New mirror, new furniture, no weird reflections. Until last night. I was brushing my teeth, looked up. Just routine. Except the mirror version of me was already staring back before I raised my head. like it had been watching me the whole time, smiling. I froze, toothbrush still in my mouth, foam dripping down my chin. The reflection in the mirror wasn't mirroring me. It was already looking up, staring straight at me, smiling slightly, as if it had been watching me the entire time. The smile wasn't mine. It was close, too close. Like someone had studied every photo of me and learned to replicate the features just well enough to make it uncanny. But the symmetry was too perfect. The teeth too white, the eyes too wide. It was a mask of me, worn by something that didn't understand how people worked. Then it blinked. Before I did, I stepped backwards slowly, never breaking eye contact. When I left the bathroom, I shut the door and shoved a chair under the handle, like that would matter. I left every light in the apartment on and slept on the couch with my hoodie pulled over my face. Except I didn't sleep. I just waited. When the sun came up, I crept into the bathroom again. The mirror looked normal. My reflection looked normal. But something about the way it stood, the way it tilted its head when I did, it felt rehearsed, like it was copying me a half-second too late and then auto-correcting before I could notice. I started tracking it. Patterns, times, surfaces. It only ever happened after 3 a.m., never during the day. It preferred glass over metal and rooms with doors I could close. I covered all mirrors, blacked out screens, stopped using the camera on my phone. I wouldn't even look at my own shadow if the floor was too polished. But it adapted. I found a message typed into the Notes app on my phone. No timestamp, no app history, just a single sentence. You're making it worse. I played a voice recording saved under a name I didn't recognize. It started with static, then soft breathing close to the microphone, and then a voice, mine, but wrong. You said yes. You don't remember, but you said yes. After that, I unplugged everything that could record, reflect, or listen. But it didn't stop. It began appearing in other people's eyes. In the reflection on my spoon, the dark gloss of a coffee table, a car window driving past me. I look for a second too long and see it. A version of me, watching, never moving, never blinking. Sometimes I saw it wave. Then I dreamed again. I was in the old apartment, the hallway, the mirror, but the hallway was gone, just darkness, a frame floating in black. The mirror was fogged, but I could see something on the other side. Myself, but not moving, just standing there, looking at me. There were scratches on the inside of the glass. Dozens. Hundreds. Then came the voice, soft and close. You knocked first. I looked down. My hands were torn open, fingernails cracked, skin split. I'd been trying to get in. No, get out. I was on the wrong side. I woke up screaming. My throat was raw. On the window pane, drawn in condensation from the inside, were 3 words. Now we switch. Since that night, I don't look in mirrors. I haven't for weeks. Not in elevators or store windows or even the side of a spoon. If I catch even a glimpse, I look away because I know what I'll see. Not me. Him. Waiting. Patient. Smiling. And one day, I'll slip. I'll forget. I'll look just a second too long, and when I do, he won't be the reflection anymore. I will.
I live on the 14th floor of an apartment building that only has 12. Yeah, I know how that sounds, but let me explain. On paper, on maps, even in the elevator, the numbers go from 1 to 12. There is no button for 13 or 14. But I live here, physically, tangibly. Apartment 14-02. My lease says 12-02, but when I moved in, I had to take a narrow staircase behind a service hallway, a stairwell not marked on any fire exit map. When I reached the top, there were 2 more apartments. No signage, no doorbells, just 1401 and 1402, printed in faded brass numbers. No one ever talks about it. I've never seen another tenant in the hallway. I've never heard voices through the walls. No footsteps. Nothing. It's dead quiet up here, like the air forgets to carry sound this high. I wouldn't have thought much of it until I started hearing the knock. The first time was 3 nights after I moved in. I was falling asleep when I heard it. 3 slow knocks, perfectly spaced, not loud, not aggressive, almost polite. I assumed it was the neighbor. I opened the door. The hallway was empty. No footsteps, no sound, just the familiar flickering ceiling light and the long, silent corridor. I stepped outside, checked both directions. Nothing. I told myself it must have been someone knocking on a different floor and the sound traveled weird through the vents. The building was old. Metal pipes echoed. But the next night, it happened again. 3 knocks. This time at 3:13 a.m. I didn't open the door this time. I looked through the peephole. At first, I saw nothing, just the hallway, dim and distorted through the fisheye lens. But then something stepped into view. A figure, standing motionless, about 10 feet away from the door, facing it. I couldn't make out a face. The lighting was too low. It didn't move. It didn't speak. Just stood there. I blinked, and it was gone. No footsteps, no sound. Just gone. I stayed up the rest of the night with the lights on. The next day, I asked the building manager if someone else lived on this floor. He looked at me like I was trying to be funny. "There is no 14th floor," he said. "You're in 12-02. "No," I said. "I walk up an extra staircase. I live above the 12th floor." He paused for a second, then smiled, too quickly. "Old buildings do weird things with floor plans. Don't worry about it." That night, I tried sleeping with headphones in. It didn't help, because I didn't hear the knock this time. I felt it. 3 dull, heavy thuds, like something hitting the bottom of my bed from beneath the floor. I don't have neighbors below me. No one does. I didn't sleep after that. I just lay there, eyes wide open, listening to the stillness of the room, a stillness that felt wrong, like it was forced. I was afraid to move, like even breathing too loud might let it know I was awake. At sunrise, I packed a bag and went to stay with a friend across town. I didn't tell him the real reason, just said the heat in my place wasn't working. That was easier than saying there's something knocking from a floor that isn't supposed to exist. I stayed gone for 2 nights, slept fine, ate normal, thought maybe it had just been sleep deprivation, stress, the quiet turning in on itself. On the 3rd night, I got a text. No number, no sender ID, just a message. "Why did you leave the door locked?" I didn't respond. The next message came exactly 1 minute later. "You looked through the peephole. I saw you too." I went back. I don't know why. Curiosity? Guilt? Stupidity? It was raining when I got there. The stairwell to the 14th floor was colder than I remembered. The air had that old wet plaster smell, the kind of scent you only notice in buildings that have memories. When I opened the door to my unit, everything looked untouched, no signs of intrusion, But when I stepped inside, I noticed something on the floor just inside the doorway. A small folded scrap of paper. It simply read, "You were supposed to open it." That night, I waited. I sat by the door in the dark, lights off, no music, no distractions. I stared at the peephole. Midnight passed, nothing. 1 o'clock, nothing. 2 o'clock. At 3:13 exactly, 3 knocks. I flinched, but I didn't move. Not at first. I forced myself to lean forward inch by inch until my eye met the glass of the peephole. There was no one there. I exhaled, and then from the other side a hand covered the peephole. I stumbled back so hard I tripped over my own feet, crawled away from the door, heart hammering in my chest like it was trying to dig out. I watched the doorknob. It twitched. Just once. Then silence. I stayed awake till dawn again. When I finally dared to open the door, there was no one in the hall, but on the wall opposite my door, written faintly in some kind of chalk or ash, was a sentence, "No one lives on the 14th floor. No one ever leaves it either." I checked online forums, Reddit, obscure threads about architectural anomalies and liminal spaces. Nothing definitive, just vague horror stories, often ending in people disappearing. One post stood out, a user describing a building that went up to 14 on the inside, but not on the blueprints. The post ended abruptly. The last comment from the user was, "Don't acknowledge the knock. That's how it starts." I tried to move out, broke the lease, told the manager I couldn't stay for personal reasons. He didn't argue, just handed me a paper to sign. I didn't tell anyone about the knock, not in full, and I haven't been back since. But I still hear it sometimes. 3 soft, slow knocks. On the hotel door. On my window at night. Once, on the mirror in a restaurant bathroom when no one else was inside. I've lived in 3 different cities since then, but every time it finds me again. Always at 3:13 a.m. Always 3 knocks. And now I don't think it's about the floor anymore. I think wherever I go, it builds a new one, just for me.
When I was 7, I asked my mom why I had to sleep with the closet doors shut. She told me it was to keep the dust out. I knew she was lying. I didn't know why, but I knew, even then. The first night we moved into the house, the closet door had been cracked open. I remember that detail vividly because I didn't fall asleep until it was closed. Not all the way, just enough for the latch to click. Even with the lights off, I could still see the thin line where the door met the frame. The darkness behind it didn't feel like just a shadow. It felt deeper than the rest of the room, hungrier. The first time I saw him, it was barely a second. A sliver of motion through the crack. A pale, long hand sliding the door open from the inside. Quiet, patient, like it had done this many times before. I screamed. My mom ran in, flipped on the light, told me it was a nightmare. She checked the closet. Nothing. She said I was just adjusting to the new place. I knew better. Something had touched the door. Something had been waiting. The rules came naturally, almost instinctively. If the door was open, I closed it. If I woke up in the night and it had somehow opened again, which happened often, I wouldn't look. I'd pull the blanket over my head and pretend I didn't see it. That was the only thing that seemed to work. That and not speaking about it out loud. When I turned 10, I made a mistake. I left the door cracked on purpose, just to test myself. I told myself I was too old to believe in monsters. I fell asleep facing away from the closet. At some point during the night, I heard a shuffle, soft, dragging movement on the carpet. Then a click, the closet slowly inching open. I didn't move. I kept my eyes shut tight. But then I heard breathing, close, shallow. It didn't sound like an adult's. It was lighter, rhythmic, like it was mimicking my own. A cold finger brushed against my foot through the blanket. I didn't scream. I didn't flinch. I just whispered, "I'm not looking. You're not real. I'm not looking." And it worked. When I opened my eyes the next morning, the closet was closed. The room was quiet. But in the dust under the bed, I saw it. The imprint of something that had crouched there for hours. Knees and palms in the carpet, fingers too long, knees too sharp. I never left the door open again. Years passed. We moved houses. I told myself the creature, the thing, the presence had stayed behind, that maybe it was just a childhood hallucination. But the first night in the new place, when I went to bed, the closet was already open. I hadn't opened it. That's when I understood it wasn't the house. It was me. And it had followed. I developed rituals, closet closed, blanket tucked under my legs, eyes away from the door. No mirrors facing the bed, no phone screen reflecting at night. I trained myself not to wake up between 3 and 4 a.m., the window when he was strongest. If I slipped, if I opened my eyes during that hour, I knew I'd see him. Eventually, I forgot what he looked like. My brain mercifully let go of that detail. But I never forgot the posture. Crouched, watching, head tilted like he didn't fully understand what humans were. Not curious, just waiting. In college, it almost stopped. I lived in a dorm with no closet, just a clothing rack. For 2 years, I slept through the night. But one night, walking back from a party, I passed by a glass door in the common hall. It was dark outside, and the glass showed a near-perfect reflection. For a second, I thought I saw someone behind me. When I turned, there was no one there. But in the reflection, just at the edge of the frame, crouched low to the ground, something pale moved into the shadows. That night, I pushed my wardrobe against the wall, slept with the lights on. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that crouched shape. I remembered something my mom used to say, "Just don't invite him." I never asked what she meant. Maybe I was afraid to hear the answer. 2 months ago, I moved into my first real apartment. 1 bedroom, big windows, hardwood floors, walk-in closet. First night there, I sat on the bed looking at the open closet, and I hesitated. I knew if I closed it, I was acknowledging it. But if I left it open, I closed it, locked it even. At 3:31 a.m., I heard 3 soft knocks on the inside of the door. Not fists, not angry, just a reminder. I stared at the ceiling and said nothing. Last night, something changed. I woke up, no alarm, no noise, just jolted awake. The closet door was open, wide. I know I locked it. I didn't move. Something stood just outside the doorway, partially silhouetted. I didn't see its face, but I could feel its head tilting, inch by inch, as if trying to catch the movement of my breath. Then it whispered. It was the first time I heard it speak in words. It said, "You never looked. That was the deal. But now, you're going to." I shut my eyes. Hard. I haven't opened them since. Not to look in mirrors. Not to glance at black screens. Not to turn toward anything that might reflect even a fraction of him. Because the deal's still active. The rule still holds. He lives in the closet, but only if you don't look.